Hi friends, and welcome back to Nancy's Walkabout episode 18. As you all know, I'm actually doing a course right now on novel writing, and the book that I'm reading is Zadie Smith's fabulous White Teeth, which I absolutely love. And I'm really connecting with the author, Zadie Smith. I find her super fascinating. We actually were made to read an article by her, which is called Fascinated to Presume in Defense of Fiction. This article kind of blew my mind away, and I would like us to maybe have a bit of a debate. If you could put some comments after this video about your thoughts on this matter, I'd really love to hear what you think about this. She's an amazing personality. I'm not going to quote, you should just read the article. But it's interesting, the era that we're living in right now, it got me thinking about how lucky I was to go to university and do my science degree. Now, the reason I'm saying it is this, my first degree, as many people's first degrees, was probably not the thing that they ended up with. I was going to be a pre-med student. I was a pre-med student. I was going to be a doctor. Everything I did was scientific. I did physics, chemistry, anatomy, all these, evolution. I did all these kind of things. Nothing to do with writing or creative writing whatsoever. However, what it taught me was how to research, how to find information, how to gather data and then make educated presumptions and conclusions, based on the research that I did. Now, this has really helped me as an author today, or as a writer today, should I say. We're living in an age where, we have a lot of restrictions about what we can write and how we write it. Fiction is really being blurred into like memoirs and non-fiction. There's a lot of, publishers that will say, oh, well, you can't write that because you're not Asian. You're a Polish Australian woman, so you're only really allowed to write about that demographic because it's unfair. You don't know what it feels like to be a Vietnamese Australian, or you don't know what it feels like to be someone from Papua New Guinea or from Saudi Arabia. And so authors are having this restriction of what can they write, because people might say, well, that's not authentic, it's not real, it's not true. But it's not meant to be true, it's fiction. Fiction is meant to be imaginary. It's, it's okay to write about science fictions or goblins or aliens because they're not on Earth. But as soon as you put a place like London or, a town in Poland somewhere, you have to be from that place because you must not know what it's like to live there. And this is a bit of an argument that we were talking about in class, and there's a lot of people that feel this way. Where Zadie Smith and I come from this other kind of chain of thought where we're writing fiction and we're talking about characters and emotions and feelings more so than what someone looks like on the outside or where they're from. But then, of course, I come to what I was trying to say earlier. I think it's really important as a writer today to not only have really lived and explored and traveled and been to many places, which is something I've done and Zadie Smith's done and many other writers, to really understand, to be with the people that we're writing about. And this is a form of research. It's not just reading it in a book, what someone else wrote about those people. It's actually going and living in those tribes, or going and living in, as I did in Saudi Arabia, or going to a Bedouin camp, and or being in a zoo and living with the people, if you're writing about a zoo and working in the zoo. I think there's something about doing research through actually living it, but then also researching by reading lots of articles, lots of different points of view from different people writing about a topic. So it's more and more important as a writer of fiction, sadly, that you can't just imagine these things anymore. It's imagining, but then also having to give facts to that and say, well, actually, I did my research. And it's not just a fictitious character that I've made up, someone living in Antarctica who had studied, zoology and is a specialist in, gastronomy, and is Italian with a mother from Africa. I don't know, these characters that we make up and they're just make-believe. we can then say, well, actually, my friend is Italian who has a mother who's actually from a place in Africa, and I have another friend who's a marine biologist, and I have another friend who lives in Africa, and I've used that, and I've done a lot of research on these topics, and I've come up with this story. So we're living in a very interesting time as a writer. People are moving into memoirs, writing more about themselves. I want to hear about your thoughts, because this is something that is a little bit scary, that we're losing credibility or allowance to write about things that we just that are coming from our imagination. But I second that if you are writing from that place of imagination and just you're just taking the piece of paper and just writing things, go ahead then and go back and do some research on the things that maybe a publisher or a producer, if you're writing screenplays, might say, oh, this isn't really real, this is really too fictitious, and no one's going to believe it's true. Do some research. Make sure that it is authentic and it can be true. Because you will have producers and publishers saying to you, I don't believe this, because that's the time we live in now. They'll look at you and say, you're a man. What do you know about a woman? Or, you're not a child. How are you writing about a 5-year-old? So tell me what you think about that, because we had a big discussion of it in class, and I'm still uneasy about where we're heading. Are we heading to a place where we will just have to write about ourselves and what we've experienced? Or will we come back to a time where we can write about things that we've imagined and people will believe that? Anyway, that's my thoughts today. Thank you for listening. I really look forward to hearing from you, and I see you next time.